Good afternoon. This is going to be a speech, an online speech in a conference that is held in Bangkok, Thailand today, June 24th, at 2:30 Bangkok time. So that's why I'm recording this, and I hope that at the end you find it informative enough. I am going to talk about REBT, Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy. There are three important keywords in the title REBT. One is rational, the other one is emotive, and the other one is behavior. What do we mean by rational? Everything which is improving mental health is called rational, but something which is destructive to mental health and would decline it would call irrational. We mean something which is related to mentality, to mental analysis, to cognition. So here we have rational and then we have emotive. By emotion, we need to talk about the way that emotion researchers have defined emotion. What are the different domains? What are the different perspectives that we can analyze emotion, and how many kinds of emotions are there, and how can we be aware of our emotions? How can we label them? How can we regulate them? Because negative emotions definitely would lead to the third keyword, which is behavior. REBT, behavior. And what do we mean by behavior? Our cognition, thoughts, and beliefs, rational, would affect our mental health positively toward the better, improve it. Otherwise, if it is irrational, would destructively affect our emotion, and then the emotion would lead to the behavior. That is a naive thing to say that COVID has ended. Because the destructive repercussions and influences are with us and would be with us for years to come. Whatever we all experienced during the COVID time of social distancing, lockdown, quarantine, travel restrictions, the loss of the dear family members, loss of jobs, and the sudden shift and turn of education into online learning and teaching through some virtual platforms all affected our mental well-being and declined it. A lot of people are suffering still from the depression and what we went through 2 years ago. So we cannot say that COVID has ended, because the repercussions are still with us and are affecting our daily life. Now we need to find a cure to overcome these destructive, negative thoughts or beliefs that would lead to negative emotions and then eventually to destructive actions. And then it can even heighten the emotion or increase the volume of the emotion, because they are acting like messages. They are messengers. They are showing something about our body, our state of being, whether we are happy, whether we are jealous, whether we are angry, infuriated, sad, or in fear. And how can we be aware of our thoughts and beliefs when there are something abstract rooted in our minds? We need to have a notebook and we need to write them down. We call it writing, we call it mindful writing, we call it like journaling, whatever is happening. During the day, you're experiencing different emotions, because emotions are inevitable part of our life. And we need to know these thoughts. So we need to write it. In what circumstance? What part of the day it was, or what was it? I mean, like, what was the activating event or situation that led to emotion, and what kind of emotion? We need to identify, we need to recognize what emotion is. Even we need to label it. Gottman, who is a scientist in terms of family and couple therapy and family, he always mentions that if you are planning to raise emotionally intelligent children, you need to teach them how to be aware of their emotions. Even they should be aware of the physiological changes. A is about activating a specific event which is considered to be negative. B is the belief about it. C, which is the consequence. Then it's going to have some consequences. And what is that? You won't go for the conference if you're so much worried about your presentation. So you avoid it, and this is the consequence. In order to improve our well-being, we need to go through D. And what is D? D means dispute. we need to have some disputation over these beliefs that we have, over these negative thoughts that are rooted in our minds, and they are affecting our performance and behavior. So by disputation, we mean that changing those irrational beliefs into rational ones, changing those disadvantages, ideas and opinions and beliefs that we have about ourselves, others, or about the environment into something positive and constructive. Destructive turning into constructive. And then what is E? Is emotion, which is the effective rational belief here. Now together, let's check what is called cognitive distortions, or the irrationality of beliefs. Number one is all or nothing thinking. What do we mean by it? Some people forget the principle of relativity. This all or nothing attitude toward things are not considered rational. So that's why we need to omit this all or nothing. This is overgeneralization. When you try to overgeneralize, you say that, for example, the white people are like that, the black people are like that, or for example, people from Europe are like that, people from China are like that. When you're overgeneralizing, this is again considered as irrational belief. So you need to change it. Women are like that, men. The next one is magnification. There is something here, but you try to magnify it, you try to exaggerate or over exaggerate the intensity of it, the volume of it, the goodness or the badness of something. This won't lead anywhere good. This is again called irrational, and you need to work on it. And the other one is minimization. What does that mean? As I said, over exaggeration or overstating something. On the other hand, we have understating something. You have something, but you don't see the abundance of whatever you have, and you try to minimize it. The other one is personalizing. So by this personalizing, you take everything to yourself. The other one is mislabeling, and this labeling is very important because you have to be very careful about how you label everything. To label your emotion and feelings, and you have to analyze it in terms of the evaluative domain. I mean, the way you evaluate it as positive, negative. Imagine that a person is swimming in the sea and suddenly confronts a shark. So by evaluative domain, I mean that he considers it as a dangerous thing, and biologically, sweating, trembling, or even expressive, we can see that, for example, the eyelids are raised and the jaws dropped. So this is the expressive aspect of the emotion that can be seen in the postures, in the facial expression. By the behavior, I mean, what do you do after that? So definitely you try to swim away from the shark as fast as possible. So these are the different domains of any emotion, and knowledge, awareness is consciousness about our emotions, or how did we regulate it, how did we manage it in order to change this negativity into positivity. If we start monitoring our thoughts and the negativity of them, and then the way that we approach them, the way we try to manage them through different techniques in order to make them positive. And then also we need to compile the different ideas. We need to study more about how life is, about the philosophy of life, in order to recognize the irrationality of the beliefs and thoughts we have, because the more irrational they are, the less happier we become, the less satisfied we are, and more problems we have in not only in interpersonal communication but also in intrapersonal. This is a kind of self-help therapy. This is a kind of self-help manual. We need to think of our negative thoughts and we need to change them. Done. Some cognitive interventions we need. We call it CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. It's all about cognition. It's all about the cognitive processes in the mind. And how can it be done? Number one, you have to be aware of the absolutes. To challenge this absolute. Always, never. How many times have you heard couples talking together and saying that you never bought me this, or you have always been like that? See this? We have to be very careful with the use of always and never. We have to be very careful with these absolutes, because they all lead to an unhappy life of never satisfaction. to learn how to reattribute them, how to see the goodness and positivity even in adversity. Maybe there is something for us to learn. Maybe there is something there to empower us, to make us much stronger, or maybe there is a goodness hidden in it. So in any adversity, we need to see some probable positivity, something that can lead to a better, happier way. Cold cognitions, warm cognitions, and hot cognitions. What do we mean by cold cognitions? Cold cognitions are just descriptive. You describe something, and it is non-evaluative, just descriptive. Warm cognition include the preferences and non-preferences for laden emotional demand states, maladaptive cognitions, and dysfunctional attitudes that would lead us nowhere but sadness, but grief. How can we do it? Number one is cognitive disputation. What is it? It is like a direct questioning of the belief that you have. And what do we mean by imaginal disputation? It's like imagining you are in the adversity, and then the role plays and whatever you would do in that certain situation. So we try to practice and rehearse that particular event and that particular adversity. It is a kind of rational emotive imagery. What does it mean? REI. Rational emotive imagery means that you imagine the adversity or the bad event, the negative event, the destructive one that could affect you, and then you try to imagine what you would do in that particular situation, and then little by little, through role playing and practicing and rehearsal, you're going to alter those emotions, the intensity of the emotion, to something which is appropriate. For example, in the time of traffic, you used to always shout or come out of the car and try to fight with the people, but this time, through behavioral disputation, you're trying to keep calm, cool, collected, sitting in your car, driving, listening to music. That very minute that you were stuck in the traffic jam, which gradually you are trying to develop a new philosophy of life, and that would lead to much enhanced performance and action. Even in communication with people, you would see that you are much more communicative and you are handling the relationship much better than before. So what Albert Ellis is focusing on, he wants us to be aware of the dysfunctional attitudes and destructive, irrational beliefs that would lead us nowhere but misery. Now we're going to review what people would say in different circumstances and what the result would be. Some people believe that the people around me, my friends, the family members, should all absolutely treat me friendly and kindly and fairly and justly. Otherwise, they are damnable and rotten people and abusing me. What does it lead to? This severe feeling of rage and demandingness would even lead to rape, would lead to murder, to genocide, to child abuse. And some other would say that unhassle, enjoyable. Otherwise, it is awful and I cannot stand it at all. Now, what is the result of this irrational pattern of thinking? It leads to the feelings of low frustration tolerance that comes with compulsion, obsession, addiction. And some people would say that I should do the activities or whatsoever assignment or task I have perfectly well. Otherwise, I am a worthless and inadequate person. It leads to feelings of anxiety, depression, and severe inhibition. And also we need to recognize the problematic schemas and the scripts that we have made in our mind from childhood, or the way of upbringing, the way of parenting has caused us to believe so. So one by one, we need to sit down and correct and rectify those rooted beliefs. And it is not an easy job, but if you want to be happy, definitely you should start it from today.